Right, folks, we're here with Padraig Coffey from Rathcore. Padraig, thanks very much for taking the time to come out and have a chat. I was lucky enough to bump into you at your launch there last week there in Rathcore. Great old night.
Yes, good night.
Look, yeah, you had a nice few people from the party and the whole lot there.
Look, we enjoyed the night, it went well, and look, you're trying to launch your first venture into politics, I suppose, the way I look at it. It's an interest I've always had. I've had it from a very young age, I suppose. I told a little snippet on the night of why I just accidentally fell in politics. My late grandfather and grandmother were in the house, and I was visiting with my mother, and they weren't speaking. And I just think back in time, and I said to my mother coming away in the car, I said, what's wrong, Granny? Oh, politics, she said.
Yeah.
So that was just my introduction. And then I started to follow it as a very, in the 70s and 80s, where television was the only way you got on top of anything or got to know anything.
Yeah.
It was an education process. You were watching the Charlie Hoy and the Gareth Fitzgeralds and this stuff, and it just, I suppose, it stuck with me and I liked it. I like, I suppose, current affairs and that sort of stuff, and I followed it and came along. I was asked then a number of years later about coming to a meeting, a Fianna Fáil meeting, and I went, and I ended up being chairman of the Common as I am today, and a good, I suppose, 10 or 12 years the chairman of the Common in Rathcore. And getting back to the last Friday night, that was the reason I would have wanted the thing in Rathcore, because it's the name of the Common, and we're carrying on a tradition that goes back into
Sorry, just explain to me what a Common is.
The
Common.
The Common is the actual organisation, the small meetings of the Fianna Fáil. In other parts called branch, but we call it the Fianna Fáil. It's a Common.
Okay, yeah.
So look at it's the area we live in Rathcore, and it was always named that, and I was very, very lucky to have the event there the other day with a good attendance and a good night.
Yeah.
Look at
there was what I suppose you're kind of half answering my next question is why Fianna Fáil?
Why Fianna Fáil? Well, it was always I seen it as a party looking after people from a working class background. Now, we never really, I suppose, distinguished ourselves that way, but it just came across from my younger age. They were doing stuff for people, we'd say small, self-employed and working people and stuff like that. And that's why I went with Fianna Fáil. Now, you'll hear different things about different parties and what to do, and the other thing about Fianna Fáil, I found it over the years, we were very lucky to have some great leaders. Now, some people have said different, but one man that always stuck out to me in mind was, and he created, I suppose, what became the peace process, was the great Albert Reynolds as Taoiseach, and Bertie took it over from there.
I think Albert Reynolds, probably of all the leaders of Fianna Fáil, does stick out as being a particularly well got sort of.
He I suppose, from my point of view, looking at him, he put his neck on the line and he went and he met people. At the time, wasn't looked at, he shouldn't be meeting them. And we're talking about an organisation in the north and in the south that was basically, they were said there were to be this and that and the other. But he took the chance, he went for it. Then he met with Seamus Mallon and the two of them, late Seamus Mallon and John Hume, and what became the bones of the peace process, I'd say. With them men, he got it, and eventually Bertie and them got it over the line in 1998. Now, I'd have to take my hat off to all parties in this island as regards the peace process. Now, since that, it has changed. The parties, the way they take on one another, and I suppose up to the present day, we're looking at parties taking different positions, and it's hard to know what position parties have at this current time.
But you're coming from a self-employed background.
Yes.
And you're a butcher, is that right?
Butcher is correct, yes.
So from that point of view, the background of self-employment, how do you see Fianna Fáil going forward if you were to get elected? How that Fianna Fáil would be more beneficial to people that are self-employed?
Well, the likes of us, I look at throughout the country now, and I have to backtrack from the question you're asking me, I suppose, is I see a lot of small businesses went by the wayside. People couldn't any longer sustain what they were doing. and it was, you know, there was other multiples came in and affected what to do. And I'd say my trade is one of them. Now, the small corner shops that was out in rural Ireland and places are decimated, gone.
Yeah.
And even rural pubs, like, you know, it was unique that I had my event in a rural pub last Friday night, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
because a lot of these are gone. And look, at hat off to anyone, but what can they do for small business as well? I tell you, one big thing is the contribution of rates.
Mm-hmm.
To make us sustainable as in little small artisan businesses and creating local employment, and them are the things that I suppose that people in power, and we'd say like Fianna Fáil or whatever party is there, has to look at what it takes every day to create what we're doing and get through it in that fashion. I suppose what can they do? We had extraordinary electricity bills here in recent months, no different than homes, and we had to deal with them, and they brought in some sort of a
subsidies and whatnot.
But it didn't work. It did to a point. But we're back at the coal face of it again. They're all gone. The electricity stayed at a certain height. It didn't go back to where it was pre. We'd say the war in Ukraine. Is where that kicked off.
All triggered from there.
Yeah.
Now I do remember those kind of. You could call them grants and things like that, because we everybody got them. You know, where it took off. I don't know, maybe 10% or something like that, roughly of your electricity bill. And you know, I think for the greater part of it, it was well received by people. You know
it was well received by people.
And I suppose, you know, going forward, where there's a lot of you know, the political issues and what's going on in the country now is you know, the whole thing is very, very political, and people kind of would tend to forget about these things that were beneficial to them not so long ago.
I suppose, you know, the national crisis at the moment is this thing that the UK put upon us with the Rwanda and the illegal, I suppose, people entering the country. Like, we say they're asylum seekers, but a lot of people are arriving here illegally. Like, they're not arriving here with a passport and that sort of stuff. And there's a lot of stuff that was good, that was done, that's been blotched out.
Well, you see, the thing is with media and stuff like that, the way things have gone now with social media and content, is that the more dramatic stuff is, the more clicks it gets. Do you know what I mean?
Without a doubt.
So if we started screaming and roaring at each other, you know, we'd get 1 million hits tomorrow morning. You know,
exactly.
But we're not going to do that. But anyway, the immigration thing at the moment, do you see? I don't think it affects our areas so bad. What's your thoughts on that? And what's also with that? What is your feedback on the door in relation to the immigration issue?
Well, there's one benefit I have over most people that goes to knock on the door. I have a door that's open on the street every day, and if people come through it in my butcher shop, and I find even people that are here that would have migrated from other parts of the world to here maybe 20 years ago, they're not happy themselves. Some of them coming from states like India and different parts of the world. I had a person explain to me, she was here over 20 years, she had gone through the process of becoming an Irish citizen, she had a right to vote, and she wanted to know what my stance would be nationally on this situation. Well, my stance on this is that people must be stopped going into the country, checked, and if they're found that they're trying to enter illegally for, we say, as I said, financial gain to get here, because we're a wealthy country. At the end of the day, we're a wealthy country, as has been proven over the last couple of years. We came from a huge downturn to a massive upturn, and there's money there at the moment. These people around the world, because of, I suppose, social media, and you can go and look at where's the wealthiest country in the world. You can find that online any day. And I think in Europe we're maybe second or third at the moment. So this is why we're attracting these people. Now, I have no problem with people who's asylum seeking from a war-torn country whatsoever. They're welcome, but I have a huge issue with, I suppose, young men that arrive from a war-torn country where women and children should get priority and all has stayed down through the years. And this is where we find ourselves. We find ourselves with a lot of young men entering here with no passports, and they say they're asylum seeking, and then to get them processed because of, I suppose, the slow system and the slow nature of our systems that we have is causing backlogs. And I suppose this is how we ended up with maybe 250 people in tents on Mount Street. They're waiting to be processed. Now, it's not fair on them. And then if there's people amongst it that's illegally here, they should be deported, is my view on it.
So where do you see that on your you're busy canvassing, and I know, like we're trying to rush this kind of thing here this evening. You were out canvassing. It's 9 o'clock here now on Friday evening. You were just canvassing just on the way back in, and I appreciate you coming in for that. But what are the issues that you're getting at the feedback?
Well, the big issues here in South County Meath are, I suppose, in villages. We can say that like Longwood, Rathline, Summerhill, and even Enfield is traffic calming. That is one of the biggest issues at the moment. And making our villages a safer place to be, even if it's only to cross the street. You know what I mean? Pedestrian lights, national schools, there's even rural are looking for the likes of pedestrian lights for crossing at them and stuff like that. That is the big issue. Then, I suppose, there's a lot of development and a lot of building went on over the last 15 years. Even that we had a downturn where our house numbers are back up, and facilities along with these houses is the biggest problem. The likes of playgrounds. There's no playgrounds in the likes of Enfield, Rathline. You know what I mean? There's a playground in the village of Enfield, but it's not accessible by the estates of the new housing estates. It's not.
It's in a bit of a quagmire spot there.
Yes, it is indeed. And it's
it's a very good one, because my daughters too, and I know all about these things. And they're like little events. We go to Enfield and Trim and Blyver and this and Enfield is grand, but like if Super Value is busy, then it gets, and it's a little bit dangerous there with cars coming in and out and whatnot. You know what I mean?
It is an issue, the danger of the accessibility to it. But look at them with the issues we're meeting, and then of course we're meeting, and I have to say it in this fashion, meeting people of County Meath, is the only way I can put it to you, looking maybe for a daughter that's living with them for a home at 30-something years of age, maybe with a child living with them. And it's a huge thing. And they see these other people who arrive from other jurisdictions from outside of Europe and beyond, and they're getting looked after, and they feel they're being put down the pecking order. And it's not fair. It's not fair. I just don't believe that. I think we should get some sort of system in place that a person that's born into this county is looked after in this county. Because if you're going for planning permission for a one-off house and you're lucky enough to have a site, the first thing they'll ask you is, are your local needs? And I think when it comes to a housing list, it should be very similar. It should be local needs. Did you attend the national school in this area? And it's a very simple process. And then it actually, without being racist or anything against anyone, it actually gives the native county person priority. That's my view on that part of it. You know what I mean? That's a huge thing on the door. I met maybe 3 houses like that, and I met a girl who was actually basically in refuge in her mother's home, where she came out of a relationship, an abusive relationship, and she couldn't understand why she'd been a native Meath person, and south of the county here, in my area where I'm canvassing, why she was so far down the list. She had applied, she had done her bits and pieces. And
is this for a one-off house or a council house?
For we call it council house or assistance or assistance. You have to get assistance, even to get her
get on the HAP through.
So look, there is all that. Them are the things we're meeting on the doors, and then I suppose there's smaller stuff like elderly people need their houses in their council house maintained, and Meath County Council, I think, don't realise what's going on out there as regards elderly people are really afraid to ring in. Now they're paying rents to the council, and they're really afraid to ring in because they think they're being a nuisance. Because given that age of people, you know what I mean, they didn't want to be a burden on society, and they don't even bother anymore.
Well, some people, I suppose, when they get a bit older, like I know from my grandparents and whatnot, one granny might be, I ring them every day. Jeez, I get onto them and she'll be onto them, I'll persecute them and break their heart. And then the other granny, she'd be like, no, sure, look, they're busy in there and whatnot. You know what I mean? Trying to get the balance there.
Yes, to get the balance of that is correct. And, we look at, and then I suppose the few little bits and pieces like accessibility to transport for elderly people as well. Like now, I know they've started that 189 bus from Nav and back then, which is a great help. I actually see a good few people using it. But then another huge issue for the likes of where I'm in my own village in Enfield, where I trade every day, is we need a park and ride system because the street is clogged every day with parking. People who have no relationship with the village except they're going to get a bus or they're going to get a train, and there's no restriction on parking except a 3-hour, and it's not implemented. And the problem being there is, and I've come across this a few times, is an elderly person trying to park on a shop on the main street. If it's only to go to the chemist, myself, the butcher, or whatever, even a cup of coffee, they drive on, they can't get access.
I go through it all the time, and it's just the same thing, the same thing all the time. Going from, I suppose, some of the candidates are older, they're younger, they're in the middle, and this is your first time punching into or weighing in, I suppose, into it. How are you feeling?
Oh, I like it. I like the canvas. I like meeting people. I'm meeting people. I would off, I suppose, to serve me time now. I have to go off the path here a little bit. I was very lucky. I went to serve me time in Navan in 1986, and it was fierce. A very lucky time for meath football.
Right, yeah. 86, yeah.
And I was in that era serving me time in Navan. I was in a bubble. I used to say to myself, I didn't realise, and we come to the current day. Yeah. But getting back to the question is, I suppose, I'm enjoying every moment of it. Yes, is the answer. It just reminds me of that era when I was serving my time. That's the way I can put it to you. If I could take, I suppose I was 16 and now I'm 54. You know what I mean? And it's the same feeling when you get your first job, I suppose, and you're going. But I like it. I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy the fact that, somewhere along the line I can help these if I get elected.
Well, one of the things that I heard you saying the other night at the launch was that I got a sense of conviction from you that you were going to really root for the people. Now, I don't know what way you said it, but that's the way it came across to me. You know what I mean?
Look, when I was asked to run, there was a girl that was running along with Ashleen Dempsey, was Sinead Garrity, and she's from Ballinabrackey. I think she got promotion in her job, and then she took herself off the ticket. And I was asked, and I said yes. And I said yes on the grounds that I was going to win the seat. And that was it. I just didn't think for a minute. Now, if I'm beaten by 2 or 3 votes, I'll accept it. But I give it a good shot. I come from a background, our family's well known in the area here, and I suppose I'm going to go from that I can try and get it off the line. I will do the things that has to be done or asked of me. Isn't that it? And be active is the same. Like I've known councillors down through the years get elected, but if you're not active for your people, you're not going to be returned. And so if I can get elected first time out, that's me aim.
Yeah, well, so, I know from speaking to kind of friends and family members and stuff like that, and I'm hoping with this podcast series is that it'll bring everybody closer to the councillors, and to really get to know people kind of more personally and what they can do for ordinary people or whatever. Like talking about 2 or 3 votes there, I think Mr. Castles there was at the other night, and he was saying the importance about where he got in. I think it was a 1 or 2.
Sorry, Cassidy.
Cassidy. Cassidy. Yeah, it was 1 or 2 votes. So I suppose when you're like it must be just frantic from now till
it is. Yeah, you're down every highway and byway, and there's parts of this county. I said it before that we think we're bad enough round in the Enfield area, and there's a lot of things we're missing. But you get back into the likes of Ballinabrackey, Castlejordan, a part of the county. The one time elected a TD, he was a Fianna Fáil TD, Brendan Cringan, and it stands in time, I suppose, in the way you can describe the place. But I suppose talking to people, an unbelievable community spirit from it. You know what I mean? And up for the fight and ready to vote for you. I found that most amazing. And look, I would have known some of them. I worked in the regional town beside them in Butchered in Terms in Edenderry. I knew a lot of them. I didn't realise till you're knocking on doors and you get to know them. But when you said yes, it's frantic. You're everywhere, and you'll hear the lad that was there before you from the other party, and you're wondering, am I wasting my time? But you actually get to chat to people and look at they give you the heads up that they'll give you some sort of preference. That's what I'm saying. Like, to give you a preference of any sort. And then you're in a town centre in Navan in the 8th and maybe the 9th of June, and you'd be hoping that an old 2 or 3 or 1 it gets you elected. And that's it is a game in that regard, and you're trying to put your best foot forward and tell the people what you can do, and when you're elected, even more so, you'll do it for them. So
I think as well with the party that you're standing for, Fianna Fáil, that it depends on what way the government shuffles up for the general election, whenever that happens. I think they're saying it's going to be probably around the end of this year, maybe, or whatever it is. But as it stands, if you're elected, in theory, you have a direct line then straight to the door with the representatives.
I just know, I had also late that night, we had Barry Cowan at the launch. He arrived late, and he did explain even about in the European Parliament, if you're independent, Your speaking time, everything.
Yeah.
People ask me different things over the years, independent, and that's the way I see it. To get your speaking time in the Dáil Chamber, or get your speaking time at council level even, or get something voted on, you have to deal with the parties. And it's dealing you are. It's it's an old saying, it's a hush deal, and that's what you're at. You're going back to the parties, maybe one that you resigned over, maybe one you were disgruntled with, and you're going back to them, trying to get something done. And this is what the party is about, I suppose, in that regard. Now, and I always found it that, from my looking at Fianna Fáil, it's a good old family in a way when we're going around doing things. It has its flaws. I'm not saying it hasn't. And you go on from there, you get elected. And you're probably part of the party, and there'll be some people who are independents will approach you then on some given vote, and you probably have to give them consideration. And he's seeking your help. You're not going to ignore them. They're dealing with an electorate and people that elected them. So if they have an issue, you try to help them as well, and that's the way I see it. So that's why I suppose I didn't ever go away from the fact that party politics, I suppose it does work. There's no doubt.
I know it does. There's no doubt about it. Like, I suppose independence, and all respect for independence, and I've respect for both sides of the coin. But these are the facts of politics. You know what I mean? I heard Barry speaking the other night at your launch. He spoke very well. He spoke a lot about Europe and about agriculture. I suppose his base would be very agricultural. He's based around Tullamore, actually.
Yeah, he's in Tullamore, originally Clara in County Offaly.
Yeah.
But he spoke very well. Now, I have a background. I was reared on a farm myself, a small farm, and I have a background that I went into the meat trade at a young age, and as I said, I seen it. Look at my end of it, especially. Butcher shops were rural in all villages. I happened to be in the last surviving butcher shop in South County Meath, my own, and there was Beliver, Summerhill gone, Rappaline gone, and you can go along that national route, believe it or not, the whole way to Mullingar and Westmeath, from Kilcock in County Kildare, and they're desecrated, gone. And I see it rolled in from European directives and things. Lads had little abattoirs and stuff, and they couldn't see why would they maintain and spend the money, and they were put out of the system. And they talked about traceability in food. There was no greater way of traceability than your local abattoir. You bring in your animal and your couple of lambs, and they were killed on the day, and they were brought up in a number of days after hanging and into the butcher shop, and they were traceable. And the food chain was so short. Like, it was done within maybe 5 or 10 mile radius. Now there's tens of thousands of miles on cattle in this country, on sheep in this country, trying to get.
And a lot of it then is coming in from South America as well.
South America, there is that aspect, and then you have foods from all over the world. You know what I mean? Now, if I go into the game of talking about chicken, like we can go to Thailand, talk about China exporting chicken into this country. You know what I mean?
It's nonsensical.
No, it's not. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense on a green island that all was self-sufficient. Like, that we have to do this, and we do. And talking to Barry the other night, we're exporting some unbelievable stuff out of the country. Now, it's a huge export. It's a huge thing, the food trade. But he was on about whether farming and emissions and all this sort of stuff, it's affecting farming. I don't think in the world scale of things we'd actually register in all they're doing at this moment in time rurally as regards, fertilisers and different things. We wouldn't register if they reduced the national heritage. Even on the system as it is, I'd say less than 1%. We're not going to improve.
So they're talking about reducing the national herd in terms of reducing the green footprint or the carbon emissions from the country.
But my opinion that is, I can tell you straight out, I would have contact on a regular basis with people from South America, and they're very frustrated. Their rainforests being chopped down to feed the people of Europe, and they're very annoyed about it. Like,
are these people coming into your shop or friends? Or?
Friends that I would know through the food trade and
right,
meat trade, and they are adamant that their rainforest in the likes of Brazil has been just levelled to feed the people of Europe, because they've this thing in Europe about emissions, and they're going to stop things. Like, it's the lungs of the world.
Absolutely,
the Amazon forest. And they are very upset. The actual ordinary people in Brazil are very upset about what's going on. So you're on about what Europe is doing is being counterproductive in another part of the world.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're
just what it looks like on the face of it is that, on the face of it, maybe the Green Party or whatever can say, well, look, we're cutting back the emissions and we're getting to where we have to get to by 2030, whatever it is, and to hell with South America and Brazil, this, that, and the other. The Amazon, that doesn't matter to us at all.
Yeah,
now, I know some people, personal friends, that are native Indians from the very central of the of Brazil, and it's shocking. What I mean? They'd send me some stuff there of just of drone footage of just hectares, thousands of hectares just getting wiped out for plantations, for soybeans, for grass and stuff like that, for rare beef and stuff like that. Where do you see yourself in terms of the agriculture and the feedback that you're getting from your shop and stuff like that, and how you would maybe drive towards that going forward as a councillor?
As a councillor, well, look at the simple things is, if you win, and I suppose I'm going to go on about the supermarket. If you go to the supermarket, you see all the packaging, right? Plastic, right? When you go to a bush shop, it's a very simple little transaction. You put a pound of mince in an ordinary small bag. It hasn't got the carbon footprint that the plastic tray has. Just doesn't.
And the big massive manufacturing to get that.
And all that. That's exactly it. And the factory that it creates this gas flushed meat is gigantic. And the other part of that is, if you're processing food on a big scale, you have lots of staff, you have lots of issues. You're in, I suppose the way I can put it is, you're in a controlled environment. But if you get an infection in that controlled environment, this is now, maybe you might have heard of this during COVID, where a number of men got sick, or women that was working in these places, because we're in a controlled environment at a controlled temperature, and but equally does bacteria spread in there on the food. So it's not necessarily, it may be called a sterile environment because it hits all the marks from a HACCP point of view. But when you put it to the test, it's no greater way of spreading any bug is within one of these systems. Like, if you have a breakdown in the system and there's something wrong, it's very easily, I suppose the only way I can put it is poisoning a lot of people. And you get it in certain things. You'll get food recalls and different things out the multinationals where something went wrong in this system. Now, I know it'd probably be safe in that you get food recall, but there's in the ordinary, I suppose, we'll say, artisan shops, you go in, you get your stuff, you go home. It's daily, it's different, it's a different product. People say sometimes you're dear, but you end up, they're able to tell you you're not as dear as some of the multinationals because the product was good, we could eat it, we didn't waste it. Because some people buy this stuff in gas flush trays, they bring it home and they're not happy with it, and next thing they waste it, they don't even return it. You know what I mean? And they waste it.
You have a serious responsibility as in your job, because if I go into your shop and I have something I guess I go back and blame you, then it's devastating to your business. So you're doing that for how long are you doing that?
38 years.
38 years. So you have I'm sure you have it down to a T, and you're protecting them safety measures completely the whole time.
The whole time. And for the first time, I suppose, in 30 years, a great thing happened this year, I have to say. Food Safety Authority of Ireland brought out a manual that matches up with what we do. Right. And I have to credit them for it. It's a very simple, the simplified something was called HACCP, and they brought it to us in a better way, in a better format. They took out some of we call them the critical control points, and the bullet pointed what you had to do, and they made it good for us. It is easier. And I only done the course this year, and the manual was given us they gave us the manual. I think the manual itself is about €150 short, and they gave it to us. Every food business that's left, I suppose. There's a lot of lads gone. So we done the course in it, and it was very good. Now, it was very good for me personally, because I would handle a good lot of food, and it makes it very simple to know. It gives you the pros and cons, the checks, and explains all the different things to us. So no, I found that to be good. But you're right, there's a huge responsibility, massive, and especially at Christmas. People don't realise, like any butcher shop could handle between 500 and 1,000 Christmas dinners, and you get one of them wrong at Christmas, and you're in trouble. And I suppose
people take it for granted, but that's huge responsibility.
Huge responsibility. You do take it for granted. That kind of things. Yes. But look, you get on with it, you do it, you know what you're doing. It's like lads, I suppose, fixing cars or
doing what they're doing. In order to have the business sustainable. Let me ask you, going forward as a councillor, in terms of small businesses, where do you see yourself? Like, I see one of your strong points as being a voice for people in small businesses, because you're one yourself.
Yeah.
How do you see yourself going forward as a councillor, being a strong voice for people in the kind of small businesses? And, particularly towns like, say, Longwood and Enfield and places like that, where, I'm a great advocate for small businesses and stuff like that. You see it in around Trim. Trim is bigger. It's not too bad, you know what I mean? But, like, I think something more needs to be done for I don't know, help or whatever.
I did mention the likes of rates and stuff and electricity, but I tell you another thing is, you find men in my trade and in other trades small, they give it up because they can't get help, they can't get proper help, and they can't get a proper, I suppose, subsidised system where they can have a guy so many days a week. Now, we live in the world of technology, and at this moment in time, it's one place I see where social welfare. If I was to take a man for one given day, say he's on, we'd say, some sort of assistance, that there's some form of an app or something on a telephone where I can stamp that man's card for a day, and he's fully insured, he's with me, he's legal, and I'm not doing nothing that's going to do the state out of pocket, because it's a huge issue for people in smaller businesses that can't get a person for a given day. You could ask a guy that was maybe pensionable or even on some sort of assistance that you wanted help for a given day, but there's no quick system there where you can go online and just say, bang, there's his PPS number, I'm paying that guy for the day, and that's his return of stamp, and we're not affecting the overall. And
that's a benefit to both of you.
Both, yes. Because we're in technology era, and I can't understand how social welfare hasn't come up to the plate in that regard. Like, you have some simple system. If you need a person, and that's actually putting money back into the economy. I'm not looking for a handout, I'm looking for help. Or anybody in small businesses trying to do that. Like, you get younger, and then a huge thing is apprenticeships. To get apprenticeships going again in the country. A lot of people went away from them, and we were after coming through, I suppose, 30 years of, did he get enough points to go to college? And younger people, they talk about anxiety and stuff, why he didn't do too well, and he gets himself fixated that he's not fit for college. Well, I don't think college is for everyone. Now, let's be honest, there is certain people, and we've all went to school, and we knew they excelled in certain ways, and then there was a certain cohort in the classroom, and maybe they'd be better off serving the time.
Well, I suppose, looking back at my secondary school and primary school, the lads and lassies that I went with, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
There was a split of lads that just didn't care less about what was going on and never looked up or whatever it was, played a bit of football maybe or something like that. And then there was other people who were just climbing towards academia the whole time, do you know what I mean? Now, at this stage, I'm 45, and looking at them, some of them that didn't do anything in school are incredibly successful.
Oh yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. There's no fear in it for them because they didn't care when they were in school. It's an awful thing to say. They didn't care, and there was no fear in them. And they took chances, and they got there. And fair play to them. And it's a huge thing to do, and to get out there maybe with, we should say, non-academic, we call them, and they get into the system of doing some particular thing and get good at it, and they know they're good at it. And because the other last thing is about, I don't want to be just saying apprenticeships. I see if young lads are got at a younger age and young women into apprenticeships, and it gets them away from that whole era of, and it's another thing I'd love to talk about, is the mental health thing.
Talking about in relation to people going to school, people getting apprenticeships, the lack of apprenticeships, and how that may relate into the kind of the increase in mental health problems, especially around here. Like I mean, the stuff, the devastation around here. Do you know what I mean?
Devastation. And young people trying to get through this, they call this black patch or dark patch or whatever you like to call it. But if they were in a situation where they were, I go back to the apprentice, serving their time with someone, an older person would say, we'll call them a sponsor, call them what you like. They're serving their time, they're learning something, their mind is occupied. Like, you see a lot of jobs advertised and experience. Well, where do these young people get experience? They don't have it. And to get them into experience is put them in there, give them apprenticeships. Now, I've seen it down to the years in the very trade I'm in, loads of the wildest men, and what you yourself, Damien, said about them being, they got on in life. They did get on in life because they went in there, they worked hard, and they got on in a system. Maybe it was broken the whole way through, but it was fixing them. And apprenticeships in general,
they're tough.
They're tough, yes, and it's tough love in a lot of cases, and you're with people around you and older people, and you're very young. But then there's a bit of banter in it, and I suppose I never was a man that took a pint, but I went into pubs with lads and had a bit of crack after the day's work, and the young fellas, they were kept an eye on. And that's what I'm saying. Them apprenticeships are unique, and you meet people to this day that have gone through them apprenticeships and they have only nothing but good to say in the end, that they got there, they got to serve the time, and have this qualification. It may not be recognised. That's another thing. It may not be recognised. They may not have done the academic part of it, but they are well fit to do what they're doing every day. And as you said, they got on in life. But to look back at the young people now, they need that sort of coaching and mentoring to get them into these. And I think people, I suppose like myself and maybe other people like me, to go into schools when they're at that age, to tell them it's not all about college. You know what I mean? We have different things throughout this county and other counties, but we don't have a proper system in place where a guy can go in and explain to them in a school situation before they make any decisions in life. Now, they may be going to get, there could be a lad in the same class getting 600 pints, but he can't share them with you. You know what I mean? And you're hoping to get 190 or 200 just to say you passed your leaving cert. And hoping then you'll get some sort of now call up in college instead of maybe saying, look, I'm going off this other route to serve my time. And we have a lack of plumbers, electricians at this moment in time. And the few we did have emigrated. Because they got the qualification and they went elsewhere, and they probably, we need another grow of them coming through, and it's to get them sort of young fellas and young. I better be not sexist about it. All trades are open to both, and go on with their lives and try and serve their time, and don't be really bogged down with this thing. I didn't get this or I didn't get that, or you know what I mean? Because maybe you could go on for a certain number of years electrician and you could move on into something else because you have the confidence to do it.
I met a girl. It reminds me of a story. I met a girl over in Australia in Perth, and we're outside a pub just chatting or whatever it was, and she had a kind of a fancy enough accent. She was from, I thought she was from around Dublin or something like that, and she said to me, what do you think I do? And I said, you're probably a solicitor or something like that, you know. And she said, no, I'm driving a dump truck down the mines. You know, and like in terms of different things.
Exactly, it's an experience, life experience.
Oh no, she was doing it for the money. She was making great money.
It was a life experience as well for them. She was there and she was doing it, and it's amazing actually to get to these places. And another thing that has maybe ruined, and we grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I suppose in the era after, I did talk about the square bale. There's a lot of stuff became bigger in system, and there's not as much on farm labour for young people, for young lads and young ones to go out there and try their hand at something. And even as you said, driving a tractor and get that experience. Maybe if they've been to an airplane, they're arriving in Australia to have that experience, but not everybody gets that chance anymore to have their experiences and go on.
The simple things like, you know, I'm sure you were the same, where we were throwing square bales up on the back of a tractor or whatever it is, and even at the age where you weren't able to lift it and your hands had burned with the blue wire, you know,
the blue bale,
and then you'd be down in the bog, and sure, you know, what would you get out of that? Like, we'd get an ice cream on the way home, and you'd be, like, your hands would be burned off, your back would be burned off, that was that. And sure, like, you look back at it now and it was sure.
Oh no, it was a very simple and easy way to grow up, I suppose. That's the way I look at it now. But you see, the complication, I suppose, the social media has spoiled it in a way for a lot of young people. They think they have to be a certain type of person, look like a certain type of person, and go to college, I suppose, and get back there again. You don't necessarily have to. You just have to be yourself and kick on any way you can. I do always say to the lads, I've had different people over the years work with me, and I've one young fella, he came to me out of school, out of work experience, and he went on down to college in Athlone, and it wasn't for him, and he went on, and I got a bit of experience working with me, and he got a job then with a supermarket, believe it or not, for a while, and he went back to college and became an accountant. So you know, it may in the very early ages to find yourself, and don't be forcing yourself down the road straight away. So that's
it's very you know, it's like we see different young people there coming through, and I think with these rural towns, it's particularly important to nurture these young people coming through. You
Exactly,
know?
yes.
And I think, with your perspective on things from the self-employed part of you, I think you'd have a good little, speak on the whole thing.
No, without doubt. No, I've a huge interest in the fact of young people and getting them through their hardship years. Like people don't look at it that way. Like we hear psychiatrists and psychologists telling us this, and this, but when you look at it, is the person you're looking at and see what you can do for them and get them through their phases. And as I said about the guy who went on, he became an accountant. So it's just there to be done, and there's maybe not enough communities in the community system that was. Like you spoke about when you were younger in the bog and things. That community spirit is missing. It's missing big time.
It's gone out of it altogether. One of the things that strikes me about you, Padraig, is workload. Like I know from doing some of these interviews that there's the lads that are already elected, you know what I mean, there's a huge workload attached to it, you strike me as somebody that wouldn't faze.
No, it doesn't faze me. No, I look at down through the years. I've worked at what I do. It's a tough old game, and in a way, and I'm happy. I always liked it, you see. And I always had a graph for politics, as in, could I do something there that might help somebody? And this is where I'm coming from. I have that interest, and the workload. Look, be what it is, I put things in place that will get me stuff done. And that's the thing. I was always good at that. Now, I came across a good few crises in life, and you put things in place to try and manage them, and you get on with it. And look, I suppose that is the making of the man. You know what I mean? You have to try and keep yourself level even when you're in trouble, and then when you're going well, you have to keep yourself level. That's it. So I feel I'm going good at the minute. Now I could be flapping on the 9th of June.
Overall, are you getting a good response, middle, or how
a huge response from people that I met over the years. Massive response. Glad it's me. Glad I'm local. That you have an idea of where you're at in this end of this county. Now it's neglected. There's a lot of investment in the other end of this county, and when I talk about this other end of this county, we're talking about the Navins, Nashmonster and Shockers. Huge investment. Like the very village I'm in at this moment in time, we don't have an actual day-to-day doctor. There's no proper doctor in the village of Enfield. Now, I think in the last census, the actual immediate village has a population of 1,800. Now, I have to be corrected maybe on that.
It's growing like a mushroom down there now. Every time I drove past it, there's more houses there.
Yes, that's exactly it. And we don't. No, we need a primary care centre. And it's one of the things, if I'm elected, I will be directly getting involved with the HSE and getting them to do their surveys ASAP. And I'd say our answers are there. We need a primary care centre. I'd be a little bit put back and see the lovely one in Summerhill, but look, a fair play to the people. Dr. Joe Clark fought over the years there along with a group of people, and they got their primary care centre. And they have all the different aspects in it. I think that the third age in it as well. And if we can't achieve something like that, if I was elected a councillor, I'd be very disappointed. And I hope that we can get in there and get to like that. For young and old, I have a few customers in my shop. One person in particular, new couple, bought a house out the road. She's attending her GP and RD in County Loud, and I think on the opposite side, her partner is going back to Edenderry in County Offaly to a doctor. Because they can't get one in the area. Like now they're moving into the area. I think it's the least they could be there on a regular basis. Now there's people that moved out of their mother's homes in Lucan in County Dublin, still going back to their doctor in Lucan. And if that in a situation where a child gets sick or anything, these people have children now.
It's disaster.
That they ring a doctor in Lucan, that they ring out of hours to Lucan, or out of hours to RD in County Loud. Now, if you do imagine that trip, the sequel you get yourself seeing.
Well, RD is, best an hour and 20 minutes then or something.
Exactly so. And we're in that end of that county, South County Meath. We have no access to ambulance or fire brigade except phone calls. I know they tell you they'll be there, but most of these calls are going to a central system. And the ambulance arrives. You could have one, or you could have none, or you could have three within a certain length of time. And I'd be talking from experience over the years of people who got sick in the area. And now, luckily enough, they got there, and they got there in time. Sometimes in an ordinary car, maybe with heart trouble, and they get to the nearest A&E, and they're looked after. Now, we have a great organisation in the area, in Baconstown, to look after the defibrillators and that. And look, you'll see it everywhere in different villages and towns.
Yeah.
And machines now. They're trying to fill a gap, but they're not able to fill the gap of if we have a serious injury or anything to get the person away. Like if we had a primary care centre, something can be done immediately. If it's we'd say in the working day anyway. But just at night, we're very, what would you call it, out on a limb. If anything goes wrong after the hours of 5 or 6 in the evening, we're out on a limb as regards medical care, fire service, all that. Like we have, you probably know it well yourself, the N4 motorway, M4 and the N4, and if accidents, they are dealt with. But if we have an ordinary thing happens in the village, like in a house, a person gets into trouble with a pain in their chest, it's not just as quick, and that's the system we're on, and that's the way we're at. Like I have to always admire the people in NAV that got to save the hospital, but we're a long ways from it. You know what I mean? It's over the road. It's a half an hour no matter what you do to get to NAV and hospital, and it doesn't do a lot of the acute stuff. So sometimes you have to go to either Blanchardstown and maybe Tullamore or Mullingar. These are the hospitals we're talking about. We're not accessible. You know what I mean? We're in South Meath and that's it. So we need a better service.
And you know, particularly as your fingers on the pulse with the community in Enfield completely, probably as good as anybody. And then you're hearing this coming in. I would also see with the like we had a tragedy before as well, where ambulances were delayed coming out for various different reasons, and like that, and they were coming from Nav, and some of them were coming from Drogheda, wherever it was, what I mean, and the fire service as well,
But look, because where we're geographically put in the map, got to do with this central call that goes in, we could get an ambulance from Tala sometimes, right? It may arrive late. Now, we may have at that stage had an ambulance that came from Navan or Trim out in the fire service, and we don't know where they're coming from. We don't know. And in some cases, it's an awful waste of the resources because you could have 3 ambulances arrived then because the central call comes out. And that is a huge thing as well. Because we do feel, we're after making that call for the help the person, and then we're wasting money at the same time. And that is definitely, we hear it all the time. But primary care be one of them in the village of Enfield, and be a big issue.
There's a lot of stuff there, like, just in the few things we're after covering there. Like, I'm just thinking, like, if going forward as a counsellor there, to cover these stuff, like, you're going to be really getting stuck in there.
Oh, you have to get stuck in. You have to look. They're not. I suppose.
I don't see it as somebody being shy.
No, well, I won't stand back. Like you see, I suppose getting back to the academic in me, I suppose it's there somewhere. We'll keep at it. We'll get at it, and we'll come approach that gets the thing done. That's the secret, I suppose. And like, I suppose I'm not going to start chawing the heads of people, but I won't leave them alone. You keep at them till you get some sort of an answer.
Well, the idea of what we're doing here with these podcasts is to give people an idea of what you're like. So if they're going to vote for you or whoever it is, they're going to vote for you because they know that you're going to, or be the person maybe to be their voice, as such.
Well, that's what I'd be hoping for, to get myself over the line, get voted for, and you're going to do something for the people, and you're going to be active for them. Like, there's no point in getting a 5-year term. Any councillor in any little local, electoral area, get his own votes and go away with them. Like, it's time, like, they all come up to the plate. Like, at the end of the day, people will tell you, it's not that bad of a number. No, but if you do your work, it's not a bad. You're able to put your head up and walk around and say, look, I got that done there. And, you know what I mean? You might have to pinch yourself in 20 years' time or something to say, God, was he involved in that? You know what I mean? But look, if you get something there, get stuff done for people. That's about being active, I think, is the big thing. I really, really mean it, because over the years I've seen people come and go at it, and you say, you wonder what did they do?
I absolutely that. I've seen a lot of councillors come and go, and some of them have been great, and then other ones are going, Jesus, was he on the council?
You have to ask yourself that question. But look, if I can get over the line and get elected, that's what it is. Like, it's like a big sporting competition, I suppose. I think is there 11 running for...
I think 12.
12 running for 6 seats. Now, somebody could enter the race. I think you can someday in this
Yeah,
month.
I think the 18th of March is the last day for the entrance into
Was it?
Yeah, sorry, 18th of May.
May
is the last day.
So we hopefully we stick with 12. 14 coming lucky.
Yeah. Well, listen, thanks very much for taking the time.
Thank you,
and wish you the best luck. You know, and it's great to get an idea of Padraig Coffey going forward, what he's on about.
Yes.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good luck. See you.